Hi, Andrew from SACS, and welcome to video number 7 in our 11 video sequence on how to create a corporate culture. Did you know that certain people are drawn to certain industry sectors, to certain types of work, and that can have a massive impact on corporate culture? It's a thing called assortative matching. It's often described within questions of relationships, type of people who tend to partner up. But also, assortative matching to jobs is a real phenomenon. Let's look at some of the facts associated with this. So there's a question of culture and the types of people who fit into certain types of culture. So naturally, cooperative people have been found to fit better into collectivist cultures. So what that means is a collectivist culture is where we do everything together and we make our decisions together and we cooperate in that sort of sense. Whereas if I'm a kind of a rugged individualist and I don't like to go along with other people just for the sake of it, then it may well be that I'm going to be better fitted to what might be called a hierarchy culture, whereas more agreeable and extroverted people tend to fit better with a clan culture. People who are less agreeable, which means more angry and difficult, might well perceive a better fit with a market culture. And so a market culture is where it's competitive and we tend to try to sell things and we may have a sense of competition within our organisation, those kinds of things. Individuals higher in openness tend to perceive a better fit with adhocracy culture. What that means is some people are broad-minded and they like an environment where there are not strict rules. Adhocracy is really where we all make up our own way of doing things and it all seems to work somehow. Extroverts tend to gain more influence in team-orientated organisations. So if I'm a naturally extroverted person, which means I like people and I get in with people and I'm pretty confident, well, if you're in a teamwork style of organisation, not surprisingly, if that's your approach, you are much more likely to be seen as a contributor. Conscientious employees tend to gain more influence in organisations where people work independently on technical tasks. What that means is that a person who's conscientious is naturally more hardworking and committed, so they don't really need that sort of teamwork feeling to cause them to be successful. But it's also true that organisations and the nature of their work draw certain types of people. So for instance, if you look at sectors like hospitality, not surprisingly, hospitality tends to attract extroverts. And when you attract a bunch of extroverts in an organisation, and by the way, I've run consulting projects for catering companies and it's like an exercise in crowd control, lots of big personality. Hospitality, being a customer service business, tends to draw people who are kind of outgoing. Now that has a massive impact on corporate culture, the assortative matching of where people come to these types of organisations because of how they are. Well, not surprisingly, that creates a very extroverted kind of culture. We've also had clients that are, let's say, chartered accounting firms or even actuarial firms where the work is kind of technical, individualistic and intellectually challenging. And not surprisingly, it tends to attract people who are kind of thoughtful, who are smart, who are often quiet. Maybe they don't like the interpersonal stuff. So if you run an activity, a team building type activity for a group of catering staff versus for a group of people who work for an actuarial firm or maybe a code cutting firm like a development IT company or something like that, the tone is immensely different. And the immense difference comes from the fact that you've attracted a bunch of people who are a certain way. And that's a really important thing from a corporate culture point of view. So corporate culture comes very heavily from the type of people that you attract, but it also comes from the people that you let in through the front door. And that's a perfect segue to our next video in this sequence, recruiting for corporate culture. By the way, this is, I think, one of the most underrated areas in the whole question of how to build a corporate culture. You recruit the right people, you are well ahead of the game in terms of creating the corporate culture that you want. You recruit the wrong people, well, you remember earlier on in this video sequence, I talked about the ratio of good and bad experiences and how that affects people's productivity and well-being. You recruit the right people, you get a preponderance of good experiences. You recruit the wrong people, and you will have more negative experiences. So if this content is of use to you, don't hesitate to like and subscribe.